Hello, my friends. Happy Halloween to you. And let's go with bizarre stories from the subscribers. Bizarre stories from the subscribers. Mom, dolls, talk to us. No, my daughter, what happened? Why are you saying that? This one seems like it talks. Every night she comes here to my bed and tells me weird things. Huh, what kind of things, my daughter? That she's gonna get rid of me and be your daughter again. My daughter, your mom used to have that doll a long time ago. She was my baby reborn. But then I got pregnant with you, and it didn't make sense to have that piece of plastic anymore. I think your imagination is running a little wild. My daughter, look, just lie down and go to sleep because you have school tomorrow, okay? See you tomorrow. You forgot about me. It's all your fault, girl. I'm gonna get you. No. Hi, Leo, Augusto, and Grandma. I'm Ian, and I want to share a story from my aunt's farm. It was me and my cousins, Edson, Solce, Ingrid, and my brother, John. We were all there playing when my brother grabbed an old doll and threw it into the bushes. Just messing around, man. But when night fell, we started hearing strange noises coming from the woods. It sounded like footsteps, something moving. We got scared and left the bunk bed to see what it was. We pretended nothing had happened and went back to sleep. My cousin Solci was the first to look out the window, and suddenly he saw something walking outside. But it wasn't a person. It seemed to be something smaller. Could it be the doll that was thrown into the bushes? We got really scared and went back into the bedroom. We locked everything. We stayed there, man, quiet, trembling with fear until morning. In the morning, we decided to go to the corral. And to our surprise, there was the doll that my brother had thrown into the woods the day before. When we went in, Edson Solci and I approached. That's when suddenly the doll turned its head. The doll moved and it had a smile on its face. And a smile, a smile. Smile and a smile. Why did you get rid of me? What? At that moment, our hearts were already in our mouths. Nath already shouted, calling us to eat, and for a second, we ran. She saw us scared, asked what happened, but we pretended nothing had happened. We went there after eating, man, to see what happened to that doll, if it was still there, but it was gone. No sign of the thing, man. Hi, Leo, Augusto, and Grandma. I'm Ana Clara, but everyone calls me Clarina. Please draw me with purple hair. This story happened when I was 5 years old. My family didn't believe in spirits, since for them, it was all made up. At Christmas, I got a Ladybug doll from my dad, which was my favorite cartoon at the time, right? Everything I did had to be with the doll. When I took a shower, the doll was there. When I went to eat, the doll was there too. Even when it was time to sleep, I would hold the doll close to fall asleep. She was practically everywhere I was. I loved that doll. My mom said she saw me talking to her, but she thought it was normal, right? Since I did that with all my dolls. But there was a catch. Leo, when I talked to the other dolls, I did their voices. But when it was with Lady, I didn't do that. I just kept talking to her. It was like I was listening and responding to what she said. It was like the doll was talking to me about something, and I would answer that question. My mother was surprised at first, but she believed I was just pretending, right? One night, my mother was cooking dinner, and out of nowhere, I showed up to talk to her. But I was crying with a shocked expression and stuttering in my speech. My mother asked what was going on, right? She thought I had hurt myself or something like that. So I answered in pure desperation.
Mom, the doll moved. She told me that at night she's going to get up, grab a knife from the kitchen, and wipe out everyone in this house, starting with my relatives and finally me.
I spoke in a tone of desperation to my mother. There was no way she couldn't believe me. She carefully went to my room and took Lady and sent her to a pastor at our church. The pastor prayed powerfully and said that doll was not pure. There was something in that pile of plastic that was not from God. The doll was possessed by some tormented soul that sought to spill innocent blood. After our religious authority anointed it, the thing seemed to be clean again. My mother said the doll thrashed around. How can such a thing happen? She brought it back to our house and tried to give it to me again, saying everything was okay, but I didn't accept it. Even so, all I could remember were the creepy words that were directed at me. After my mother told me that, I asked her what she had done with the doll, what happened to it. She said she left it inside a wooden box in the garage, so I went there to look at the doll again. When I opened it, it had melted. The doll was already deformed. My mother believes it was because of the heat in that garage, but I don't know. Thanks for reading my story, Leo. I love your channel and have followed it for a long time. Hi, Leo, Augusto, and Grandma. How are you? I'm Davi, 14 years old. About 2 years ago, I had a Toy Story cowboy doll, you know? I got that doll from a friend of my mom's. I really liked it and played with it a lot for a long time. But when I got older, I ended up putting it aside. I just didn't find it fun anymore, you know? However, that strange doll kept showing up in different places around the house. Often in front of my bed with a frightening smile. My mom even complained to me because she thought I was the one leaving it around the house. I swear I sometimes saw that doll with red eyes blinking at me. Until one day I couldn't take it anymore and I just threw that doll into the toy barrel at my house and closed it. That way it wouldn't bother me. However, after a few days, my father suddenly woke up in the middle of the night and came to me. Bro, it was around 3-something in the morning and he was really scared, his eyes wide open. He asked me where the doll was. I told him it was in the barrel. And he told me that he had dreamed about it himself. He was asking why we didn't take him on a trip we had taken. It was a trip where we almost had an accident. After that, we went to the backyard, my house, and we burned it. My father screamed.
You want to travel? Then go to hell, you bastard.
After that, nothing supernatural ever happened to us again. I believe the doll was sabotaging us and even causing harm to my family. That was my story. If you read this, thank you very much, Leo, Augusto, and Grandma, and see you next time. Oh my god, man. And didn't you ask your aunt there who gave you this present? Sometimes she might have said, I bought it at some weird place, right? And she didn't know about this. Wow, that's messed up. Be careful, my friends. Hello, Leo, Augusto, and Grandma. I'm Graziani, and I want to share a creepy story that happened to me. After that day, I haven't been able to sleep alone ever since. This happened about 4 years ago when I was 7. It was my birthday, and I got a lot of cool presents, a lot of beautiful dolls, but there was one in particular that made me the happiest. Because she could say several phrases. She said she wanted to drink water, talked about the sky and how beautiful the blue was, and so on. So I started sleeping with her by my side because it made me feel calmer. I felt protected with my little friend. But one night, something strange happened. I had already been asleep for a while, and in the middle of the night I heard a voice calling me. So I woke up thinking it was my mom, but it was already late. At that hour, my mom and dad were already fast asleep, so I thought it could have been me moving, and I might have accidentally bumped into the doll's belly, triggering her speech system. So I let it go and went back to sleep. After that, I was able to sleep just fine. The next night, the same thing happened. I heard a voice, and when I looked, there was no one in the room. However, when I realized it, I saw that my doll wasn't by my side. I kept looking for it, but nothing. until I decided to look under the bed, and there it was, sitting.
Graziane, come play with me.
I froze and screamed really loud. My parents came to see what had happened. I told them that the doll had said my name in a really strange tone. And all of that happened without me even pressing her belly. They took her and left the room. Wow, that night it took me a long time to fall asleep afterwards. And I remember waking up with a strong headache. I had a lot of nightmares and the night was horrible. So, the next morning my parents said they were going to get rid of it because they thought it was broken. To say those things, right? I felt anxious because I felt very vulnerable being in the same house as her. That doll wasn't normal. And from the good feeling I had for her, I started to have bad feelings. I just wanted to be far away. Then, at another moment, I see my parents going back and forth, going in and out of the rooms. And I asked, what the hell is going on here? Does it have something to do with the doll? They looked at each other a bit awkwardly, sweating, and said yes, the doll had disappeared from the wardrobe where they had left it. Neither my mother nor my father knew the whereabouts of that thing, and they also didn't remember who had given that doll. Because when they picked up the gift box, there was no name for identification. My parents in the end didn't know who had given me that, and I got even more scared. Every night I go to sleep with my parents, thinking that doll is going to show up at night and come after me. Hey Leo, how are you? My name is Anna, and today I'm here to share a very terrifying story that happened to me at the beginning of the year. It was in the afternoon, almost 7 in the evening. I was in my room messing with my phone as usual. My cat Faiske was lying on a chair in my room while my dog Polly was on my bed, chilling, taking a little nap. After a few hours, my mom and my aunt came into the room and asked me if I wanted to go to church. With them, I said no, and they were fine with it. A few more hours went by. More specifically, it was around 9 o'clock at night. I was sitting, messing around on my computer until I looked at the door. Suddenly, a shadow ran by. At that moment, my heart stopped, but then, out of nowhere, my cat's pupils got really wide and he ran to the spot where the shadow appeared and started jumping around that area. At that moment, my heart started pounding even harder. My dog hid under the bed while the cat stayed there, acting all weird with his fur standing on end. Then he looked at me and lunged. Luckily, he grabbed the chair with his claws and started biting it. It could have been me. At that moment, I screamed, sent a message to my mom, and she told me to pray right away. By the way, my cat broke free and jumped out of my room through the window. When I started to pray and recite Psalm 91, my dog came out from under the bed and my cat went in. He kept staring deep into my soul while I was praying. Then he just went back to normal. That never happened again, but I'm sure my cat still sees spirits and that he was never possessed again. So much so that after that he started following me from room to room. When I go to the bathroom at night, he's there to protect me, watching the whole perimeter for me, protecting me from anything bad that might show up. Thank you for reading and may God bless you. Hi Leo, Augusto, and Grandma, I'm Samuel. I was happily at school because I just got a new bicycle. Everyone came to ask me to take a ride on it, but since I'm not foolish, I always said no. Are you nuts letting those animals on my flawless bike? No way, no negative, my friend, only I ride this. This beauty here is going to be treated with respect. One day, as usual. Right? With my gorgeous shiny bike. When a strange kid showed up in the middle of the way, he was wearing black clothes, had a gray face, and completely white eyes. He had a hoarse voice. He asked me, "Hey, can I ride your bike?" "Just for a bit, man." I said no, without thinking twice, and I kept pedaling. I've never seen this punk before. Are you sure he's going to steal my bike? When I looked back, I saw that he was standing still, staring at me with a creepy smile. One that sends chills down your spine. Later, already at home, while I was sleeping, I was woken up by a strange sound, man, like someone was hammering metal. I got up, startled, and when I looked out the window, I saw my bicycle in the middle of the street, all destroyed in pieces. And there, next to it, was the same strange kid I met on the street, laughing in a creepy way. I blinked. When I looked again, he was gone. Since then, I never saw that delinquent again. I wonder if I had lent him my bike at that moment, would he have run off with it or just taken a ride and then given it back to me, sparing it? In the end, I don't know, man, but thanks for reading my story. After that, I had to walk to school. What a bummer. My mom thought I hadn't taken good care of the bike and didn't get me another one. Laughing. Hello Leo, my name is Reza and I'm 20 years old. I'm going to tell you a creepy story that happened to me last year when I was living alone. It all happened when I had moved to another house. I rented it, and from the beginning it was strange. The rent was really cheap compared to what I was paying before. The place was pretty big and it was very well maintained. It even had a proper wall. Everything was fine, but I just thought about how lucky I was, and for a few months everything was good. Until one day, while I was cleaning the house, I found some kind of diary carved into the wood of the roof. It already looked pretty old, you know, with dirty yellowed pages. In the notebook, there were loan numbers, checks written, accounting, and people's names. I didn't care at all and threw the notebook away, then finished cleaning. But that night, I don't really know what time it was. Probably in the middle of the night, right? I felt a heavy hand on my back and it pressed me against the bed, keeping me from getting up. I could barely breathe. I heard a voice in my ear. Get out of my house! Get out of here! It was the voice of an old man who kept pressing me down on the bed. I was so scared that I fainted. The next day, I called the landlord and explained what happened. He didn't seem surprised and told me that the house hadn't been rented for a long time, that the last owner was an accountant. So no one wanted to rent that house, right? Then I understood why the house was cheap and why nobody was renting it. The next day, I left to find another house. The truth is, when the offer is too good, you have to be suspicious, right? I'm Roger. I was 12 years old when I got Balota. It wasn't a birthday gift or purchased from a store. I was coming back from a friend's house and took a shortcut down a street that passed by an old crossroads. There, sitting on a wooden bench, was a really strange man. I had never seen that guy before. When I walked by, he said, "Hey kid, do you want my hamster? He belonged to my daughter, but now she can't take care of him anymore." I stopped, surprised, and he held out a small cage. Inside, there was a brown hamster. The little animal was cute. Take good care of him. He will take care of you too. I took it without thinking. When I looked to thank him, he wasn't there anymore. Wow, is this old man in a hurry? At first it was just a normal hamster, until one night I woke up to a strange noise. It wasn't the wheel spinning, it was the sound of a compass. When I looked, Balota was standing on his hind legs, staring at the darkest corner of the room. He didn't move or blink. But I didn't pay attention and went back to sleep, thinking it was just a rodent thing. Rodents are usually very active at night, right? So it's fine. The next morning, my mom mentioned that she had found sawdust scattered on the floor, forming an almost perfect circle. I joked with her, you know, that Balota E was trying to make some kind of art there. Until one night, I woke up and saw the little cage door slightly open, and he was in the center of that circle, moving the sawdust grain by grain, as if he was adjusting something very important there. I was about to call him, but I stopped because I realized that right in the center of the circle, a tall shadow was forming. It looked human. This wasn't just any ordinary shadow in the room. How was that happening? It was just standing there motionless, staring at me. When I blinked, the shadow disappeared. The circle, however, had a slight dark tone, as if the sawdust had been burned around the edges. Belota disappeared after that night. 3 days later, he came back and was there in the cage, with the little door closed, as if nothing had happened. I stopped. I never saw that man from the crossroads again, but every now and then I wake up to that little noise. And I feel like I'm being watched by the rat, or maybe it's just my imagination. If I were one of those people who believed in the supernatural, I'd say he was trying to summon something. But after that day, I never saw him making those circles again, so I don't know. Could he be summoning something? Elsewhere, the old man said his daughter could no longer care for him. Did the daughter die? And the rat is trying to summon her soul there in that room using sawdust to make markings on the floor. I hope you enjoyed this bizarre story from the subscribers. And if you want to send a story to appear in this segment here, just send it to this email right here, subscribers Leo, Augusto, and Grandma. Alright, I'm gonna wrap it up here, okay? Bye! My name is Josiane. I'm 14 years old, and I need to tell you what happened to me during the last blood moon here in my city. Since I was little, I've heard stories that on these nights, a doll appears in different places. Sometimes in the square, in front of the church, or at others' doorsteps. They say she changes places every hour, always alone, sitting as if someone had put her there on purpose. Some say it's just a teenage prank, but others swear that if you don't take the doll home when you find her, a relative of yours will die a few days later. I never really believed it, you know? Until that night, I was coming back from my cousin's house. It was almost midnight and the moon was huge and red in the sky. When I passed through Central Square, I saw something on the bench, right in the middle. My heart froze. It was the doll. It wasn't like the ones you see in stores or in old houses. It was strange. It was wearing a stained white dress. It looked dirty with soil. But the worst part was the eyes. They weren't glass eyes. They were moist human eyes that reflected the moonlight. I swear, Leo, they looked right at me. I was paralyzed, my legs froze, my mouth went dry, and I couldn't say goodbye. I should have looked at that creature. It was like the doll wanted to choose me right there, you know? I knew that if I left her in that place, something horrible could happen to my family. When I was almost crying, a man who was coming down the side street stopped and looked at the doll, scratched his head, and without thinking much, picked it up and walked away. Just as if it were the most natural thing in the world. At that moment, I almost collapsed with relief and thought, that's it wasn't me. I won't have to carry that burden, but as I walked away, my heart felt heavy. What if the curse was real? And what if, by taking the doll, that man had just condemned his own family? To this day, I remember the eyes of that creature shining in the dark, and sometimes I catch myself wondering if it's still out there somewhere. Waiting for the next blood moon? Who here missed Cartoon Cat vs. Siren Head? There's a continuation of the comic My Friends, Volume 3. Add this store WhatsApp and message there, guys, because I'm gonna show you a preview. The Improvised Wake. Hi, Leo, Augusto, and Grandma. My name is Michelle. I'm 17 years old, and I want to tell you something that happened to me and my friends last Halloween. Since that day, I can't find any fun in these scary pranks anymore. Here in my city, there's a small, kind of forgotten cemetery. It's on top of the hill, and at night, it looks even more abandoned. I only hear some crows, some owls up there making weird noises. We always used to walk by there, but no one ever had the courage to go in, right? Until one Halloween, one of the boys said, "Let's go mess around in the cemetery." Dudes, just like in the movies, you know? There were 6 of us. We went in laughing, using our phone flashlights, with that feeling of doing something forbidden. Inside, near a storage room full of old stuff, we found an old wooden box, all dark and kind of broken. Right then, someone joked, "Look, here's a coffin, man. Let's have a dinosaur's funeral, right?" And guess who volunteered? My friend Daniel. He said he was brave, right? So he went there and lay down inside the thing. We closed the makeshift lid and everyone started laughing, taking pictures, pretending to pray. It was a real joke. We messed around like that for about 10 minutes and then we left. The next day we talked about it and laughed, until we found out that on that same night there had been a wake at the cemetery, right? And the thing is, man, none of us saw anything, but the worst was yet to come. A few days later, a cemetery worker talked to my uncle, who worked at City Hall, and said he didn't understand why we messed with that box. According to him, it wasn't just old wood, it was actually a coffin already prepared to be used. And then comes the part that gives me chills, Just remembering it, the coffin had a little metal plaque with the name of the deceased. But the name engraved there was Daniel Silva, the same name as my friend who had laid inside, man. We were speechless. We laughed nervously, thinking it could be a coincidence. But a week later, Daniel had a terrible car accident. Since then, he's been intubated in the hospital, man. Was it just a joke, a coincidence, or was the coffin waiting there for him? That's it, Leo. I don't know if it was fate, bad luck, or something much bigger. All I know is I'm never setting foot in that cemetery again, man. Or any other one. Hi, Leo. I'm Leo Augusto, 13, and a big fan of your work. I found your channel at 8 years old when my uncle introduced me to your videos. He's 23 and says he's seen them all. Shout out to my Uncle Felipe, me, Kawaii, and my bros. It's not my story, it's my aunt's, who used to live in the countryside next to a cemetery. That cemetery was abandoned. The city hall didn't use it for anything anymore, not for burials or wakes. It remained there, frozen in time. A new cemetery opened in the small town, and the old one, which was opened back in 1890-something, was closed in 1973. It was around that time that my aunt lived there, right? She said she was 15 years old. 2 years after the cemetery was closed, it was around 1:30 in the morning when someone knocked on her door. My aunt was baking a cake. She opened the door and saw an elderly woman. The elderly woman asked to come in and said she was hungry. My aunt, young and naive, let her in, right? She finished the cake, gave it to the elderly woman to eat, and the two of them talked all night long. Around 3 in the morning, the elderly woman said she needed to leave. My aunt liked her and asked her to come back other times, right? Just to have a nice chat. And that's what happened. The elderly woman came back for 3 nights in a row. Until, in one of those conversations, my aunt gathered her courage, and she asked why she only went out at night and where she lived. The elderly woman replied that she went out at night because she couldn't during the day, and that she needed to stretch her body. My aunt didn't understand anything. Then, the elderly woman said she lived at number 566. Time passed and the elderly woman left, but after that, she didn't show up for a few days. So, my aunt decided to go to her house, searched the whole neighborhood and didn't find any house with the number 566. Out of nowhere, she had a strange idea to go to the cemetery, which was nearby. She doesn't know why, but she went. She walked among tombs and more tombs until she passed by number 666. She kept slowly looking at the names and photos until she reached number 566. The tomb said, Nilda Mercedes de Souza, 1900-1971. The photo was dirty and covered with plants and moss. My aunt wiped it with her hand to clean it and got a real scare. It was the face of the same old woman who visited her at night. At that moment, she understood why the old woman said she could only stretch at night. Nowadays, my aunt is 64 years old, she's in a nursing home, and she always says she's going to die at 70 and that she'll stretch at night when she can. Hi Leo, my name is Gilberto, I'm 16 years old and I want to share something that happened to me last Halloween. To this day, I don't know if it was real or if my mind is playing tricks on me, but I'll never look at candy the same way again. Here in my city, it's not very common to go out trick-or-treating, but my friends and I decided to give it a try, you know? There were 3 of us, me, Douglas, and Giovanna. Each of us had our own little bag, knocking on doors and laughing whenever someone actually gave us candy and chocolates. After walking around a lot, Giovanna suggested that we go to the dead-end street at the edge of the neighborhood. It was a strange place because hardly anyone lived there, just a few old houses and one that really looked abandoned. I was a bit suspicious, but we went anyway. When we arrived, we saw an old lady sitting in front of a house, in a rocking chair. She looked very old, and in her hand, she had a bowl full of candies wrapped in black paper. We approached slowly and she smiled, right? Without saying anything, she extended the bowl. Each of us took a candy. The smell was sweet, but there was something sickening about it, man, almost like burnt sugar. We thanked them and left. At the time, that was it, but the next morning, strange things started happening. I woke up with a strange feeling, something weird on my skin. I went to the mirror and saw red bite marks on my arm, as if something had sucked on it. Man, what is this? I called my friends and they all said the same thing. They also had strange marks on their bodies. The worst part is that we swore we had put the bullets in the bag, but none of them were there anymore, smiling. Afterwards, we threw the bullets in the trash, all of us. That night I could hardly sleep. I kept remembering that old lady's little smile. It was like she knew we were gonna eat that. It was like it was a mark. Man, that was some kind of supernatural tracker for something to come get us, to suck us up during the night. If it wasn't her, it was something she sent. To this day, I still have these marks that show up out of nowhere. Especially when October comes around, and sometimes when I walk past that old lady's house, I see that there's no one there, but I can smell the sickly sweet scent of burnt sugar. Hi Leo, my name is Jorge, I'm 34 years old and I've been working as a rideshare driver for about 6 years now. During that time, I've had all kinds of passengers, drunk people, talkative passengers, others who just slept, but nothing stuck with me as much as what I'm about to tell you now. This happened last year. It was a night with light rain, around 11:30 when the app pinged for a ride on a road that connects my city to another one. I thought it was strange because I almost never get calls from there, but I accepted, right? Money in the pocket is important. I arrived at the designated spot, and there was a man standing by the side of the road, thin, wearing dark clothes. He looked kind of soaked. He got into the back seat, greeted me quietly, and we headed to the address. I kept watching him in the rearview mirror, and he seemed out of place. You know what I mean? As if he didn't belong there, like something was going on. During the ride, I tried to make conversation, but he would only answer with yes, no, or a quick smile. About 10 minutes later, he asked me to stop near an old gate at this farm. When I turned to tell him the fare, the seat was empty. I thought, that's not possible. The guy got out without me seeing. I got out of the car, looked around, and nothing. I grabbed my phone to check the ride on the app. And there was nothing, no history, no notification. It was like it never happened. I was so disturbed that I went back home and spent a few days without driving at night. But it didn't stop there, my friend. 2 weeks later, another ride came up on the same stretch of road. Same time, same rain, light drizzle. And guess what? It was the same passenger, man. He got in and the same address popped up for me to take him to. I asked, "Hey man, didn't you pay? You vanished last time, what happened?" He didn't answer me. He just stood there, mumbling something I couldn't understand. I had the doors locked automatically, right? When we arrived, I said, "Pay for the last ride and this one, right? That's only fair." When I turned around, he wasn't there either, man. It happened again. He disappeared, and the ride disappeared from the app again. Nowadays, when someone calls for a ride on that road, man, I don't even accept it anymore. I'd rather cancel and lose the point on the app than take that risk. Because I know that if it's him, he'll be there waiting to scam me again. Or something worse could happen to me, right, man? I wonder if that passenger died on the road and is still trying to get home, or if it's something worse that only uses the road to show up. If I gave you some good entertainment and you want to help me out, here's my Pix code in case you want to tip Leo. Alright, let's go then, huh? Have a great Halloween, everyone.